You've really got to implement AI in specific areas to demonstrate quick wins while developing those longer term strategies for wider integrations. You've got to think big, start small, and scale fast.
Hey there, welcome to the AI Sidekick, the show designed to help you banish your AI anxiety. I'm your host, Ryan Heath, from Robin AI.
Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the AI Sidekick.
Well, thank you for having me, Ryan.
No, it's a real pleasure to be chatting with you. To introduce you to our audience, I'm speaking with Lisa Weaver-Lambert, who's joining us today from sunny England. Where in England are you, Lisa?
I'm in Oxford, Ryan.
Oh, well, that's a very great place to be. I spent a semester there, actually, way back in 2003. That's how old I am. Now, Lisa, you're an AI powerhouse, but you're the sort of AI powerhouse that is not intimidating for those of us who don't come from a technical background. So I love that. I think everyone's going to be able to appreciate this conversation. And yeah, you have just had such an excellent career. You started in financial services, you worked your way into senior roles at Microsoft, you ended up as an operating partner at Montague Private Equity. And yeah, the reason we're chatting today is that you're the author of the AI Value Playbook, which I personally found very helpful getting to grips with how you implement AI across an organization when I came to join Robin AI. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, great to be here with you, Ryan.
Yeah. Now, we will get into the serious stuff, but what are you most excited about with AI? What are you going to be using AI for in 2025?
So what I have been using it for is really consolidating and synthesizing meetings. So I have a lot of meetings, and I actually use an app that is in my book, Otter AI, and it's fantastic. It brings me the insights, it gives me the transcript I can go back to, and it's just a very practical tool. So scheduling and meeting synthesization has been a huge help to me. But I think what I'm most excited about is how we're going to move from very narrow applications of AI into workflows, into broader workflows, and AI agents taking on multiple tasks. I personally try to avoid the sort of futuristic thinking because I think there's just so much noise out there, Ryan. And it's much more valuable actually to understand what's available right now. And I think we've even got these new models from China like DeepSeek and Alibaba as well. And now we've got OpenAI's new research tools. So I try to stay close to the releases. Satya Nadella has been foreseeing a significant AI transformation of the SaaS landscape. And he's predicting that AI agents will replace some of the sort of traditional backend systems and shifting the business logic.
Yeah, I am a little bit skeptical about the rate of development of AI agents. Like, I absolutely understand that in theory, they're capable of handling quite a few workflows now. But at the end of the day, you need people to be ready to adopt AI. And we find that a lot of people are only taking their first baby steps into AI, or we provide legal AI. So you have a situation where the legal team is getting comfortable with using AI for certain tasks. But where the real value would come from is if teams across the organization were able to do some of those first level legal tasks themselves, like checking out their own contracts and getting a basic understanding about what's in there, where the problems or risks might be before bothering the legal team with those questions. And so most people just aren't there yet. So, I think that's kind of the medium-term future rather than the short-term future.
Ryan, you obviously work in an area that requires a lot of domain expertise, but a lot of the sort of early application has been in sort of general operation efficiency areas in, sales and service. And we can definitely, we've definitely got examples there where you've got service benefits or efficiency gains of sort of 50 to 75%. So, how does sort of working in the legal domain differ from working in more general service areas?
I sort of see it in a vertical versus horizontal play. So we're seeing a lot of those horizontal benefits. And I think you talk about it sometimes in the sense of sort of a slicing, where you see these sort of incremental productivity gains, and you hope people are going to go for some of those quick wins. And I absolutely get that. But what we see sometimes is people have gotten so confused at the PR success of ChatGPT that they think AI is ChatGPT sometimes. And when it comes to a legal task, well, you don't want your AI tool to be trained on every piece of nonsense on the internet that isn't actually going to solve many of your legal challenges. So we obviously see that people are taking up some of those horizontal tools, but what we're trying to develop is a really deep vertical set of sort of AI services, let's say. And that takes a long time to train those models on proprietary data sets that are actually legal documents. And, that was a lot harder before generative AI models came onto the market. We've been helped by the arrival of ChatGPT and Claude from Anthropic, who we partner with now. But we have that longer term play where it's going to take a while for people to realize that we're offering these tools. It's going to take years to reach all corners of the market. But I think that's where the real transformation is going to be, where you solve a specific business pain point for a specific set of services, let's say. And all of those general tools and the foundation models, they're the ones that are at risk of being commoditized. And that'll be great for everybody, but it's probably not a great business. It's the vertical businesses where I think the real value add is going to be. But I've got a question for you, which is if you're a general partner at a private equity firm, where should you be prioritizing your use of AI in your portfolio companies? Is it should you be driven like we are at Robin AI by figuring out what is most use in a vertical sense for you? Or should you be going for those horizontal tools, the ones where you can get some of the quick productivity gain?
I think in terms of prioritization, we've got really common areas of value that are going to make a difference to the bottom and the top line, for example, in service sales and security automation. However, as you're explaining, specific use cases are very industry dependent. So it depends if we're talking about internal to the firm or within their portfolio companies. For example, in retail, you're going to focus on inventory management and demand forecasting. But to get to a prioritization, value impact versus technology capability is a very fast way of generating priorities. And I like using this framework to really heat map where the low-hanging fruit is.
Yep. And is that something that you found that you look across all the case studies you've dived into, your own clients, your own history across the industry? Is it sort of super critical for people to pick some of that low-hanging fruit to keep momentum and to win over the resistant stakeholders? Or do you also have to build in sort of one of the big transformative changes?
If you're stuck in just areas that aren't of strategic importance to the firm, you're never going to get any cut through. And P firms are ruthlessly practical. And so you've really got to implement AI in specific areas to demonstrate quick wins while developing those longer term strategies for wider integration. So, with one company, while this was a PE firm investing in infrastructure, while prioritizing the use cases for the firm, we also looked at how they needed to improve their data management, governance, and infrastructure to accelerate their adoption, and then also taking a very iterative way of working and learning, and making sure that the organization is sort of build, measure, learn mode, and also bringing in that involvement of employees as well. So having this sort of human in the loop approach is absolutely critical. So you've got to think big, start small, and scale fast. Ensuring the scope is also manageable really helps measurement, and aligning with the company's overall metrics is fundamental. But be open to change, because AI is rapidly changing field. Sometimes you have to adjust what you are doing. And I think also firms need to think about having quality controls for AI delivery in contracts. And I think this is becoming increasingly standard practice with partners that are delivering to them or to their portfolio companies. And the main sort of metric there is really on the model performance. And this involves specifying performance metrics, so accuracy, precision, recall.
And how realistic have you found people to be around the model performance? So, for example, we try to be very honest. Like, we will just be very upfront and say, this model is not going to get everything right. It's not trained on all the data in the world, so it's going to make mistakes. You need a human in the loop to verify what's in there. But what we try and say is also, like, be realistic about yourselves. Like, the humans who work for you make mistakes as well. So don't judge it against perfection. That's not a real measure of, are you getting ROI? But judge it, if you're going to ask junior staff to use the model, judge it against what those junior staff would achieve on their own without the model. Do you find people are realistic on that perspective?
I think what you're highlighting is absolutely fundamental, which is expectation setting on these models. And I have found that there is a misunderstanding of AI, and of course there's different components of AI, and how generative AI might not be used alone, but it might be used with ML, and it might be used in combination with ML and also with software engineering. So exactly what you are measuring is not clear, because people don't understand what the inputs are and how they're going to behave. And I'll bring that to life with an example that is also from my book. And it was somebody who was working for, in transport for London, where they had changed the guidelines in terms of lorries not using some of the smaller roads to go into London. And to measure a traffic infraction, it's very easy, isn't it? When you drive too fast as a camera, or you've gone down the wrong road, you get a, photo sent with you to you, timestamped, etc. Now, it was impossible to do that at the scale of all of these small roads. So what this individual did is that he built up a model, and it was very, very smart, the type of thinking that went in, the data that went in. And they were able to predict the probability of Ryan driving his lorry down the wrong road. But you can't take probabilities into a court. So none of this actually worked. And if the technology had been explained to the stakeholders clearly, or there was an understanding between those two very different parties from the front, then there could have been a considerable time and money saved there.
Yeah. To take it on a slightly different tact, but sort of similar eye-opening moment, is we found, probably 9-12 months ago, that nearly all of the competitors in our legal AI space started announcing that they could save you 80% time saving on contract review. And then we started to wonder, well, how can we even explain the benefits of our product if everyone is claiming the same benefits? So there's the question of, like, are all of the competitors really using AI to the same extent we are? But then we realized we had to sort of start becoming more transparent and honest and break down where the time savings really are. So there are some specific tasks where you can save up to 98% of the time you would have spent if you were manually reviewing all of these documents. But that doesn't mean you complete the task 98% quicker, because you then need to go through and check the citations that the AI is giving you. You've got to run it up the chain to your manager or the partner in the law firm or the legal team, depending on who is actually using the technology. And then if you look across the whole sort of timeline, you might be saving 50% in total by having used AI, but it's not 80% and it's not 90%. And you've got to give people sort of the realistic answer for them to find your claims to be credible. That's what we're finding anyway.
I think that resonates with me. And I think there are metrics that perhaps private equity firms are not used to looking at, which I think also need to be brought forward, which are concerning data quality. So ensuring the training data used to build the AI model is accurate, unbiased, and so forth. You just talked about explainability and transparency. I think it's really important to show that as well. And then safety and security. So it's not just these headline numbers, as you say, they're quite misleading, and there are the efficiency gains within certain processes, but there's also the performance of the model on its own merits.
Yeah. And what about indirect benefits? These obviously are the ones that are harder to measure. And we want to sort of have people think about all the possible benefits. And so we think about things like talent attraction and retention. If you're using the best technology, that's going to be appealing to a younger generation of workers. It's going to maybe help them achieve a better work-life balance. Are there any other indirect benefits that you recommend a CFO or the management team think about when it comes to AI?
Well, I think career progression is important, because I think that all of our jobs are changing, and the legal profession is obviously in the knowledge domain, and this domain will get transformed. So I think making sure that your skills and learning are as up to date as possible is a massive indirect benefit. I've found that private equity firms are perhaps less interested in the softer benefits. They'll listen to that once the hard metrics are proven out. And I think the way that I've overcome that is to map things out in a roadmap, so that it doesn't feel like you're pushing things out, but you're showing a logical progression of phasing.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Now, maybe to bring it back a bit where we started the conversation, you were focused on the near term and the things that are really possible today with AI. But if you broaden that timeline out to the next sort of 2 or 3 years, is it the agentic workflows that you think are going to be the most sort of transformative developments? Or is there something else that sort of is exciting you that you think, is a genuine possibility around the corner?
Well, I think we haven't mentioned multimodal, which it hasn't proven out quite yet, I think. But, I think, being human, we don't live in one dimension. So I think that is going to be really exciting.
And that's where you can get video, audio, text,
that's exactly
any sort of input and get it to spit out the research report or whatever it is that you want.
At the moment, they're fractured, the provision of services in these areas. So it doesn't quite, it's not really proficient as we are proficient, I think. I think obviously we've talked about sales, customer support, etc. But I think that the other big area that's definitely going to get transformed is marketing. I think marketing presents significant opportunities beyond content management that we've already seen play out. So, all this account-based marketing, which historically was challenging to scale, is now being automated. So I think anything, and I've got another example in the book of a company that specializes in localization of films, and it's called Lightrix, and it enables people in different areas of the world that would never have their native language used on film to get that. So I think any industry that we've been challenged to scale, that's where we're going to get traction very, very fast.
Think about the hardest to scale thing in the world, you or me as individuals. That's what I'm excited about, where I can't be in 2 places or 10 places at once. But I'm really looking forward to the moment when you can plug my thinking or my collected past thinking or my predicted future thinking and apply it to my voice and my face. And if I can't physically be somewhere to support a team or lead a offsite or whatever it might be, being able to sort of marry up all those different data streams to contribute into those places where I can't physically be. I think that's going to be really exciting.
The research that Meta is doing with Luxottica, the eyewear business in Italy, is really exciting because I think that is on that trajectory. But I think the nature of jobs will change, and I think that it's really interesting to think about how that's going to impact workflows, because the promise of these agents is that they're going to increase productivity by 250%. So one agent would take the place of 2.5 humans, which is what's happened in automotive manufacturing lines.
Maybe that's actually a really exciting but potentially scary note to end on as well, where I think that at the end of the day, AI always comes back to those sort of labor force issues, because we're always going to have a bit of a nagging doubt about, is the AI coming to replace us? And what I've sort of concluded is that it's probably not going to replace that many individuals or individual jobs. It will replace some, but it's really going to mix up the tasks that people perform in those jobs. And the people that kind of don't want to engage with this at all, those people are the ones who are really at risk of not seeing what's coming next and having their job go. Do you agree with that?
Underlying that is the fear of getting things wrong, but we're still very much learning how to get things right. And we're still defining best practices and the right level of abstraction, and mistakes are inevitable, and that's how we learn. But one thing I found, Ryan, is that one common mistake is to go too complex too early.
Well, actually, that kind of almost takes the last question out of my mouth. It's been a pretty cold, nasty winter. I know there's a lot of people who don't want to pay attention to the news or politics at the moment. So I'm going to cling to the hope that people listening might have a spare hour or half hour to experiment with some kind of AI this week after listening to us. What would be your advice to those people? Like, if you've got a little slice of time, what should you dive into with AI this week?
So I think there's a common misconception that there's a need for extensive AI knowledge to build applications. And today, with readily available trained models, the barrier to entry is much lower. And basic AI understanding is valuable. It helps to explain the unexpected model behaviors, such as hallucinations. I think, what I have learned as well, listening from leaders, throughout different industries, is the value of hands-on experience. So spending time also analyzing data manually, which is what private equity investors do all the time, is invaluable, even if it seems tedious.
You're so right. Like that's where I've made the biggest breakthrough, just using the general chatbots, is the more you ask questions of the chatbot, the more you understand what does give you an interesting response. And I think my big breakthrough was understanding that I can give it several prompts and I can ask follow-up questions. And if you sort of structure it as a multi-step sort of job, you get much more out of it. But I would never have figured that out if I didn't just sit there and play with it for a while.
Yeah, you don't want to trust them blindly. And the capabilities are just evolving. The whole ecosystem of AI is evolving very, very quickly.
Indeed. Well, Lisa Weaver-Lambert, you have been a great guide through that ecosystem. Thank you very much for joining the AI Sidekick.
No, thank you for having me.
Now it's time to bring in 2 experts from Robin AI to run our Hero Hotline, where we answer your questions, your concerns, your challenges, Call it advice, call it food for thought, call it whatever you want. The idea here is to help you get the ROI you need from AI. In the Hero Hot Seat today, we've got Tremail Turner, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Robin AI, and Sabrina Pervez, who's Director of Alternative Assets and also founder of the Women in Legal AI Network. Okay, heroes, are you ready for today's challenge? In this episode, we have a question from Anonymous, and you'll see why in a second. And the challenge here, or the question is, my chief financial officer is old school. He only wants to know about hard metrics when it comes to AI. So the question to both of you is, what are some of the more quantifiable, indirect or longer term benefits of AI? And our anonymous caller needs to have some numbers to throw in, or they're afraid the CFO is going to kill off their suggestions. Over to both of you.
Well, really excited to, have a conversation with Anonymous today. And I understand why they might want to remain anonymous. When we talk about giving real hard numbers, it's very interesting because a lot of what the industry purports is that it can give a high confidence interval, but not really, when we're talking about large language models or any sort of AI-driven system, give a deterministic result. That notwithstanding, what we've seen over time is that you can, for the type of services that we provide and working within the legal community on legal systems and legal augmented AI, that upwards of 40% productivity is achievable by leveraging these systems. But that might not be good enough because it's kind of a fuzzy percentage. One of the ways that we try to help our practitioners, both internally and our customers externally, understand the veracity of these tools is by benchmarking the evaluation of outputs coming from the tools. What does that mean in English? Basically, we want to make certain that when an LLM produces a result, that result is just as good as an expert practitioner might produce, given the same amount of time and given the same amount of context on what the document or the brief or whatever the situation may be. Being able to benchmark those figures can give you some really hard data to go back to your CFO to at least say, hey, we believe that this is not just as good as, but maybe even in some cases better, or it frees us up to do other things, which you can also measure. It is a factor of time, the time that you've reduced working on toilsome work and the time that you've made available for creative work within the firm or within a captive legal environment like an Office of General Counsel inside of an enterprise. And I think the final note that I would say is cost. So when you have a practitioner who's working and they're toiling away at repetitive work, you kind of know how much that's going to cost because you have your cost of that individual salary, you have your cost of any sort of inputs within the framework of that person's operations, the cost of your laptop, lights, HVAC, whatever you are putting into sort of your inputs in order to produce a serviceable output. You also have an understanding when you're leveraging these systems, how much it's going to cost for leveraging the systems themselves. Is that going to be a utility-based pricing model or a seat-based pricing model? Regardless of whatever it is, you can sort of take that time factor, apply it against the cost model that you've incorporated by virtue of engaging with this service provider. Hopefully it's Robin AI. And what we are fairly certain of is if you're using Robin AI, you're going to see that overall cost perspective is going to be that much lower, allowing you freedom to use that capital that might have been otherwise deployed for cost of goods sold to be deployed for more creative work.
How about you, Sabrina?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only other thing I would add here is that when teams are thinking about ROI, I think, yes, we're thinking about time savings and cost reduction, but there are some other metrics that it can be worth kind of weaving into that conversation too. So I think, first of all, just productivity increase. So typically what we see across the board is that clients come to us and they give us feedback that, AI assisted teams typically get more work done with the same headcount. So administrative tasks can be automated, and actually it allows for more increased focus on kind of more complex strategic workflows. And other things it's worth having in mind too is also kind of risk mitigation as well, which is perhaps sometimes a harder thing to quantify at the outset. But if, for example, you think about a compliance check or a regulator coming in and asking you to unearth a load of data that you've got stored internally, the time it would take for you to go and ask every member of your team to root through their emails and produce that data, as opposed to having an AI tool that could kind of record that audit trail for you and make that available on demand. That's both a time saving, but also a real risk mitigation as well. And that piece can sometimes be a little bit harder to quantify. But I suppose if you talk about kind of a potential sanction or a potential fine from a regulator that could be unearthed or could be kind of imposed upon you if you didn't have access to such an audit trail, again, the cost savings there are potentially huge. And the final thing I'd point to is also kind of time to value as well. So I think sometimes people like to think about adopting AI in headcount terms. If I buy this AI tool, how much headcount am I going to be saved internally? Or could I just go and hire a junior team member or a paralegal to do this job that I'm going to purchase an AI tool to do instead? Well, actually, you could often go and hire a paralegal and perhaps their annual salary would be a lower cost than the annual license fee for an AI tool sometimes. But the time to value is likely to be much longer with that option. So often an AI tool can be rolled out much sooner than perhaps it takes to kind of undergo a hiring process, find the right person, train them up for the role that you need them to do. And then obviously you have the risk of a person leaving your organization, whereas with AI, the tool is there to stay regardless of when you kind of adopt it. And so I think time to value is an important one to kind of have regards to when thinking about an ROI case here as well.
Yeah, and speaking of people leaving organizations, there's a cost to that as well. So sometimes you need to keep up with the cutting edge of technology in order to keep those best people in the seats doing what they do best for you. Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Tramail. And dear Anonymous, I hope you found that advice helpful. Thanks for tuning into the AI Sidekick. I hope you're now feeling more confident about implementing AI into your business. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share it with your colleagues. For more insights or to see how Robin AI can help you make contracts simple, check out robinai.com. See you next time.